Hi everybody, so this is the first part of a three-part series for our course project for CSC 4710. This is Tia and Logan's project. So basically, this is the description of our project here. It's really just a YouTube clone. We basically have videos, and we have people who posted the videos and can comment on them. And the videos are about stand-up comedians, so we're going to have a table of comedians. And then we're going to have a table of reviews by those users, a table of users, a table of favorite list of comedians for each user, and yeah, a table of videos. And then there's a distinguished user called a root. So quick look at the ER diagram. It looks sort of like this. Tia has a better one, but we'll show you in another. We just have registered users. They can post a review. Video has a review. Comedian stars in a video. We registered user as a favorite list, and we're not going to do the search list for now. We'll do that in the next part. As you can see, there's some attributes for each user, but that's just a general review. As time goes on, we'll get the database more in depth as we add more functions. But yeah, so the first part is part 1 right here, and the first thing that we need to do is we're having an interface. We're going to have a root user, and then we're going to have able to register. And the second functionality that we have is the Initialize Database that basically drops all tables and then makes the tables and then seeds them with 10 tuples. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So I'm going to go and demo it really quick. Before I show that, before I do that, I want to show you the MySQL database so you know what it looks like currently. So we have this database in MySQL called YouTube, and one of the tables is users. And if you look here, these are the 10 that we seed in 10 users that we seed in here. So the email is the username, and they have a password, and then a name, last name, and an age. Our root user right here is automatically in there, so we can log in and see, initialize all the other tables. So I'm going to show that real quick. So this is what we look like. What it looks like. We have JSP files, and we have Java files, and then class files, as well as our control servlet. Yeah. So basically, index is our first login page. So that's how I will run this. So you can go right-click, run on the server. As you remember, we have a Tomcat server that we're running this on, and this is what it looks like when we come in. Down here in the console, it just shows a bunch of talking to the Tomcat server, and we're going to get some different messages pop up there. So I think you've seen this last time, kind of what it sort of looks like now. It's just going to be more based on our project. So I'll show you how to, I'll demo it a little bit. So right here we have a login page. About login via your email and your password, and then you hit the login button. I think if you click login here, we have an error message pop up saying you need to enter at least an email. But if you go to register for an account, and if you already registered, you can go back. So that's just a hyperlink, as we'll show later. So the registration, let's just add a first name. So Bobby Brown, and the username is ben@gmail.com. Password, they have to match, and his age is 12. So now it brings us back to the login page, and as you look down here, we registered. These connection established was to talk to the database, and then you can see there's a message saying registration was complete. We go back here and we update our users, refresh. You should see Ben right here. So Bobby Brown is now in our database, so we registered him. Now let me show some quick things if you register another person. So one thing that we want to do is this email has to, you can only add email, you can't add other things. It only accepts emails. So that's one thing, because this is email tag in the HTML. But one of the requirements for the project is that you can't have a different email. since that is the identifier, the primary key for these. As you can see, all these are different. So let's try making another luke.gmail.com at gmail.com, and we'll see if it shows us an error. So the name doesn't really matter. I'll just put my name in, but luke@gmail.com. So my password, and oh, registration failed. Please enter a unique email. Okay, so that works. That's good. And then the other one requirement was that the passwords have to confirm. So let's do a unique email. Maybe is like uuu@uuu.com, and then the passwords is www. But I'm gonna mess up the next one. I'll leave with 2 W's. And then, oh, registration failed. Please make sure your passwords match. So as you can see right there, we hit both of those requirements, I believe. Just want to make sure I'm talking about all of them right. Yeah. Okay, cool. So that's the first requirement, all done. And then now we're going to log in. So if we go back here, let's just log in with, I'll log in with Mary, and then I'll log in with root to show you how to see the database. So Mary@gmail.com, and then password 1234. Oh, that's not the right password. Password 1234, Mary@gmail.com. Alright. Okay, so once you type in the right passwords, this is the welcome screen that any user is going to get, besides the root user. And then you can just log out. We'll bring you back to the login page. So if you log in with root, this is the root user's welcome page, and then log out would go backwards, but the initialize button is what is going to start all the addition of the all the new tables, dropping them and adding them. So let's watch down here in the console as that happens. It says database has been initialized, and if you look up here, as you can see, a lot of connections. We drop tables, we add users, and we do that for all of our different tables, videos, comedians. And then you can successfully initialize. You can log back out. So that's a demo. Now I'm going to go over the code. Right, so we start here at the JSP for index. This is basically HTML, as we talked about before. It's got some Java up here, but that's not really too important. We don't really use it. The main part here is that this is a form tag, and that's really all that this is, or this first, this is the login page essentially. Right here's the email password. When you type in the email, it will store it, but it will assign it to this parameter email, and it will assign it to the password. This button is a submit button. When you submit, it will go through the method, the action login, and it will go through the post method, which I'll show you here. Over here, right here, is just a hyperlink to the registration page. I'll quickly pop over the registration page before we go onto the servlet. So here is similar, the same thing. Mostly, these are similar. You would store first name. It would store whatever name you put into the first name parameter, and the action is register. The method is post. That's key. Down here we have hyperlink, and yeah, another button to submit. Pretty similar. If you go into the servlet, so in our DAOs over here, each DAO basically is a way of accessing the table and the object for each table that we have. And then we have, let's say, a user database access object, and then we have a user class. But the really key is a servlet right here. So the servlet controls all the requests from the HTTP, the request and response And so it's really key for figuring out basically all the messages you send to your web server. So let me go through the code. We first start off by declaring all private variables. We make a bunch of accessing objects here, DAOs, and then we initialize them in the initial function. So this will happen right when the servlet gets called. So the first thing is when we get this do post, it's going to go straight and just call it do get. So that way we have everything going through this function here. This function right here, it's going to the request, the HTTP servlet request object. It's going to take that string from that and turn it into action. And then in action, it's going to look at what is basically doing it, and based on what the action is, it will perform two different functions. And right now, we just have login, register, and initialize. In the other parts of the project, we'll add more. But if you see right here, login, it will call the login function. We have a register function and an initialize database function. And this login here is from our index. That was the action right there. Okay, so we catch the exception. Let's go through the different functions here. So we have the first one, login function. Right here is login. What it does is it grabs the parameters that you saved. Remember, you saved them as email and password. Well, now we're going to save them to strings. And it's going to create a request dispatcher object called dispatcher. So now we're going to the logic. So we're checking if the user is valid. So basically, like, does this password and username exist in our database? I'm going to go through this method later. But basically, it will return true if that's true. And then we also want to make sure that we're not, like, we at least have something. We don't have null values inside of our text box. So if it's user valid, then we want to check if it's root. So all we have to do is check if the email equals root. So if that's true, we can send the dispatcher to request the initialize JSP page. And if not, and that's basically the roots page. And if not, we can do the main page, and that's basically any random user's page. And then if it wasn't a valid username, then we just go back to the login page and say, that didn't really work out well. So quickly, I'm going to hop over to the initialize and the main page. The initialize page over here, basically all that has is that big button to initialize database. It's going to send it through the initialize action. And then the main page really has nothing besides a link backwards. We're going to add more later. All right, back to control servlet. Now we're going to go over the registration function. So the registration function here is very similar. It takes all these different fields and puts them here. It's very similar. We want the passwords to equal. And if they are equal, then we want to make sure, I'll go through this function later once we get to this class. We want to make sure the email is not, or it doesn't exist. If it doesn't already exist, then we can go ahead, make a new user object. So this is of type user, and user is over here. It basically holds all the different fields for a user. But yeah, so now we're going to put all those different strings into that user, and then we're going to go into insert that user into the database. I'll go over this function later. This insert function basically adds a new user. And then we can go back to the login page once we successfully registered. And then, so if it was duplicate, then we want to say, oh, this email is already taken, registration failed, enter your username, go back to registration, reload the registration page. And then if the password didn't equal, if it was the same, then it's a similar message, except the password didn't work. All right, so those are the three functions for your servlet. Now I'm going to go over the DAO. And then quickly the JSPs, I think we went through all of them. Success page really has nothing in it. But yeah, now I'm going to go over these. So let's start with user DAO, since it's the biggest one. So when you create that user DAO, add control servlet right here. It's going to go over here and open the database with this connect function. Actually, user DAO right here does nothing. But once you call a method, say insert, so we're inserting a new user, remember? Now we're going to use the connect function, which will connect to the database. We basically want to make sure that the connect object is not null anymore, and basically right here is the main line, and you've seen this already. Nothing too different. So just make sure to watch the old YouTube videos that we already have. So we have disconnect, and then this lists all users. It's not really useful at the moment, but we're going to be using it later, so I'll talk about it later. Right now it's not in our demo. So insert right here. All it's doing is connecting, and then we have this statement. It's a prepared statement, and then we're adding all these strings. So right here we pass in this user object, so we can grab the get email. So if you go to user, they have getters and setters. So we can get email. We'll return the field that we can append to this prepared statement, and then we can send it through here. And then we want to execute the statement. And that's really simple. So yeah, and then drop table. Oh, so I didn't go in control server. Let me go back real quick. So we talked about login, remember, and we talked about register. But I forgot to mention Initialize Database. So what Initialize Database does, we have in each DAO class, we have a drop function. So we drop all the tables first. That way we have it separate from the creation. Tia was idea. That was pretty smart of her. And then we create all the tables. So, and then we just go back to the success page right here, which is this really small one. But yeah, so that was what I forgot to tell you. So in user DAO, as you can see here, we have the drops, and all it does is we want to set for each x is 0, and then we drop table if it exists already, if user exists, and then we set the foreign keys back. Pretty simple. We create statement. So we connect, and then we have this string. So we create the table user. We have email field attribute, and it's a string, 20 characters long. And then we have a couple different types. Primary key is email. And then, so that's the creation. And then the next string that query that we're going to do is insert into the table our new user with these values. And then, so we just did all these together. We have 10 different ones. These are the ones we hard-coded. So we execute in statement 1 and 2. And that's pretty much all we got. Is user valid? So this was the method to make sure that for our login, if the user if it already exists on the database. So initially we have a flag saying false. Basically all we do is we have a statement where we select all the users, where the email equals email coming in through here, and the password equals the password coming through here. And then if we store that in a result set. If there is a result, then we can just return true. If not, we'll return false. So then the last function, besides this close function, is duplicate email. So we want to make sure we're not creating the same users with the same primary key. So all we do here is we connect, and we have a similar thing where we select all users. If that email already exists, we'll select that user here. And then if we found anything, we'll return true. And then we have a duplicate email. But yeah, so that's the user DAO. All the other DAOs are pretty much the same. I can go through them real quick. But yeah, you just really drop. That's all the same. Really the only difference we have right now is each table is different. So going back to our ER diagram, there's a different SQL statements for all of that. And then we have different hard-coded. That's video, we got user, reviews. So many videos and very helpful. That's review. And then we got realistic names, so favorites. So this guy has a favorite username, and then this comedian ID. Where's the comedian? Oh, yeah, so these are all different. These are all the fields for the favorite lists. And then comedian DAO. We have different comedians' names. So Jordan Jett from the District of Columbia. But yeah, that's pretty much it. That's all the code. A couple quick tips, I guess, that we had trouble with. So one thing that we didn't really work on is this web XML. So one key point is this is the servlet mapping. So there's one way to add a servlet mapping is you can add up here. You can do like an add statement and then to the DAO. And then, yeah, you can, I forget exactly syntax, but you can say what in the JSP file, what words you want, what servlet basically you want to send the request to, the form. But in the WebXML is the old way of doing it, where you can put it, just write it out here. So right here we have control servlet. It's in the YouTube package up here, and it's control servlet. And then we met the control servlet mapping. The key point right here is that right there. So that means that we're going to select all the different, basically every single page is going to go to the control servlet. So I know many people have it where you go to different servlets, but for us we just have one control servlet, so that's how we're setting it up. And then the last thing to mention, I guess, was this jar file. Well, at first it wasn't. We had some problems because it wasn't originally mapped to our build path. So if you go into YouTube, you go to properties, you want to make sure it's here in your libraries, and you also want to make sure it's here in your web development assembly. Yeah, so those were the two big problems. But yeah, excited about the next part, and hopefully this all made sense. And if you have any questions, yeah, please leave a comment. Thanks for watching.